Hello, and welcome to the Android Wear design session. I'm Soham and I'll be helping you design Android Wear applications. So, a bit about me. I'm Soham and I'm an organizer of GDG Zhuhai in Bangalore, India. I'm also a founder at Trivius in India. I'm also a creator of the application Skyro, which is an audio recording application available across the world. And that is my email address. So we are, one of the biggest Google developer groups outside the US, and we focus exclusively on Android. So let's begin with this design session. What is the idea of Android Wear? Most of us, whenever we meet our friends, we're often looking at various kinds of electronic devices. Some of us are working on laptops. A lot of us are working on phones and tablets and so on and so forth. And most of us are lost in our devices. Nobody has the time to talk anymore. And that is the whole reason Android Wear was designed. Android Wear is supposed to be a medium of communication where you don't have to lose connection with the real world. You can continue to have conversations with your friends and still have some kind of glanceable information updates provided to you at any point in time. You don't have to stop talking to your friends while using Android Wear. So typically, if you're using a phone, what happens is you are working on something, you're talking in real life, talking to your friends, you're meeting friends. And whenever any kind of phone interaction happens, maybe a phone call, a message, or any kind of an app notification comes in, you spend a lot of time getting lost in the phone itself. So this keeps on happening at regular intervals of time. And what happens is at regular intervals, you lose connection with the real world. And that is specifically why Android Wear was created. Android Wear makes you more connected to the people around you, right? So it's not only the people with you right now, but it makes you connected with everybody. So while you're doing more things in the real world, which is highlighted by the blue part over here, you have these very short durations of time where you're looking at information on your phone. So you're no longer getting distracted in your phone or any kind of device. You're just, looking at information in a very glanceable manner. The direct result of that is you're more connected to the people around you, and you don't have to look at your phone, so many times. The whole idea of Android Wear is to be, very light on your usage. You just see glanceable information, and then once you're done with it, you can quickly go back to your real world. You can go back to talking to your friends. And that's the whole design philosophy behind Android Wear. This is an Android phone. Okay, it's got a lot of icons. In the launcher, you can launch apps by clicking on the icon. It's worked very well for us. Here's the same kind of a UI on an Android Wear device. Like if Google had decided to adopt the same UI, we would be in a lot of trouble because on the very small screen, we don't have access to the same kind of screen real estate. That means that we don't have enough space to either browse those icons or to launch those different applications. So this kind of a design for Android Wear would be very, very bad. So instead of adopting the same phone UI to an Android Wear device, Google has completely changed how they have designed this. This is Android Wear. You don't have an app icon to launch, but you don't have a home screen with different kinds of widgets. What you have is a way of interacting with the device that's completely new. You can talk to the wearable, and the wearable talks back to you in different ways. It shows you notification, it shows you different kinds of actions that you can perform. So the interaction is completely different from a desktop or a web or a mobile application. It's completely different from any of those. It's always contextually aware to what you're doing. It knows where you are, right? If you're walking, if you're running, if you're sitting down for a meal, it knows your context. And that is how it can modify itself according to your requirements. It knows that you've received a text message. It knows that you received a Hangout update. It knows all of that, and because of that, it knows the context and can give you only relevant information so that you don't have to be bogged down by a ton of notifications. It knows what you want and when you want it. So let's look at the creative vision or the reason why Android Wear was created. The whole idea of Android Wear is that you don't have to really launch any application. It's always automatically activated. So let's say you're driving back home and you know that there is a lot of traffic and you need navigation help. It automatically knows that this is what you're doing at this point in time. It's completely contextually aware, and it automatically shows that information to you. You don't have to launch it. The information itself is completely glanceable in nature. There's not a lot of information overload. You see only relevant information. So if you're walking on a road, you don't need access to 1,000 other things on your watch when there is very less space. You just see a bit of information which is very important to you, like you need to take a right turn in about 50 feet, and that's all you need to know. So this kind of glanceable information that you can quickly see and go back to your real life is the philosophy behind Android Wear. It's helpful, respectful, and responsive. It tries to really help you in the things that you want to do, right? It understands you. It's very respectful of your time. It does not impose any actions on top of you. So you don't get bogged down by notifications. It's very respectful. It asks you, do you want to do something? It waits for your command. It's also very responsive. So as soon as you give it a command like send a text message to your friend, it is very responsive and it does the actions immediately. And the amount of interaction, the amount of effort going into responding to Android Wear is very, very less. The amount of interactions are very less, so that you can do more with less amount of time and less space. So this is the whole vision and the philosophy behind Android Wear. Let's look at some UI patterns in Android Wear. The primary UI pattern is the notification. So if you have an Android application on the Play Store or any store, as soon as you create a notification, it is automatically shown on Android Wear. You don't have to write any kind of code for this. All this is automatically built into Android Wear. There's no work required. Apart from that, there are many other ways of interacting with the device. The second way is creating actionable information, right? Actionable notifications. So if you're playing music, you might want to pause the music, you might want to go back to the previous track or the next track. Even again for that, you don't really need to do any kind of work. All of that is baked into the operating system itself. So for the basic notification as well as for these kind of action-based notifications, you have to do almost no work. Apart from that, there are a lot of different components that you can use in your Android Wear app, which can enhance the experience of the whole user. These are Android Wear specific components, and you have to understand them and have to see how you can use them to the best of your abilities. Note that these components will require some of your time in coding these kind of things. The previous things that we talked about were completely, you don't have to put any kind of effort for those efforts. So let's look at three different things over here. One, the first component that we like to talk about is called stacks. It is a stack of cards or stack of different kinds of information. Typically, you can see an example in Google Mail, like Gmail. You get your email. You don't show all the 5 emails at once. You show the first or the most important email, and you show a sign that there are more information. There's more information available. So you click on that, and it shows you a stack of different information, like messages or cards. This is one very important design pattern over here. You don't want to overwhelm the user with a lot of information. You want to show them a very minimal amount of information at first, and when the user asks for more, you show them more and more information. The next design pattern is the concept of pages. You show small glanceable bits of information on one page, and the user then swipes to go into the next page where there is another bit of glanceable information. So there are these bytes of information that can be consumed very easily, and you show them page by page. You don't show a lot of it at one time. The user can visit these pages whenever they are free and whenever they want to visit those pages. There's also this concept of replies or actions. Whenever the user wants to reply to something or make an action on a particular page, you can give them an option to reply either by clicking an action button or by replying in terms of voice. Let's look at some of the advanced patterns in Android Wear. The first of them is cards. So different kinds of cards in Android Wear. The first is a simple card which looks much like a notification. It's just a bit of glanceable information. You have the app name, the icon, and some information that the user can consume. The second kind of card is the card which has some kind of action embedded in it. So for example, if you have a light bulb and you want to switch on the light bulb, you can do so by clicking that card itself. So along with just showing information, the user can take an action right then and there. And the last kind of card is similar to what we have already discussed, which is basically a stack of cards. You can show a group of information in the form of cards, and then once the user clicks on that, you can go to the next card. Some other design patterns are action buttons and action countdowns. The first action button is a very important pattern. It gives the user the ability to take action on some information. So for example, in a music player, you might want to change tracks. You might want to go to the previous track or to the next track. You might want to fast forward, rewind. Such kinds of important action elements can be embedded inside a page itself. And these are quick ways to interact with different content. Another kind of pattern that we see often in Android Wear is the action countdown pattern. Over here, you can make an action and you can wait for the action to be performed automatically. Okay, so for example, if you've given a voice action or you've clicked a button like previous, you can show that you are doing this and you will do it at a particular time. So you have this countdown a couple of seconds till which the user can cancel the action. So for example, if you're replying to an email and you send a voice message, you input the message through the voice, you have an option to cancel it in case you've made any mistake. So the number of steps, the number of interactions here, note that they're always very, very low. They're not a lot of interactions. There's also this concept of a 2D picker. Understand that the whole Wear notification system and the whole Wear design philosophy is not just limited to one row of cards, right, or a row of pages. It's completely 2D in design, so you can go up and down as well as left and right. So if you come to an application, you can swipe to the right and get to the location. You can again swipe to the right, and there you can get a vertical list of pages, right? Each of those pages can be some kind of useful information. So if it's a food application or a check-in application, after the third page, you can basically go and browse different kind of recipes at that place. You can swipe up and down. So it's a very rich kind of a medium where you're not limited to just one set of data. You can actually consume a lot of data, but we wait for the user to initiate that kind of an information. Finally, you also have the last page where you can check in or you can do something and you can show a visual confirmation of that. Another interesting pattern is the voice commands. So across Android Wear, you have the option of replying or enabling input via voice. So for example, if you're a restaurant application, you can accept reservations completely by voice. Using natural language processing, Android can find out what is the time, and what are the number of other factors that are inside the message itself. You can also have a list of selection items. For example, you can ask Android, these are the things that the user might want to These are the type of actions that the user might want to perform. For example, show me my steps, send a text to somebody, email somebody. These are small bits of information that the user can click and consume. So while designing for Android Wear, you have to keep a couple of other things in mind. Keep the screen size in mind. Remember that there are different devices. Some devices are square in nature, some devices are round in nature. So don't do something which completely keeps the other device outside the design philosophy. Make sure that you design for both the square watch face as well as the round types of watches. Keep the information density to a very minimum. Don't show a lot of information because that will basically crowd the user, and that's against the philosophy of showing glanceable information in Android Wear. Show a background image if necessary, show the app icon, show a title, and probably a notification text. So that way you just show information that's absolutely necessary, and then once you swipe, you can show more information and show actions if necessary. Break the information down into chunks. Don't show all the information at once. For example, if you're a weather application, don't show information about all the days in one place. Okay, so when the user opens the watch, show the most important information that the user might want to see, which is the information on the current day's weather. When the user swipes to the right, that is the time that you should take the opportunity to show further information. So for example, the most important information is about today's weather. You swipe to the right, you can see information about the week's forecast, and you might swipe even one more to the right to get information, to check in or to find information about, uh, sunrise or sunset times or rainfall patterns. So arrange the information in a logical and priority-based configuration. Finally, also show feedback very generously. Be polite to your users, and whenever they do an action, make sure that you show some kind of a confirmation. So typically if you have a check-in app, whenever you check it, after the action is done, show a feedback. Because the screen area is so small that unless you show feedback, users feel like the action has not been performed. Like on the phone, the people are more patient, but on a Android Wear device, the screen size is very small. People want to quickly get back to your lives, so they want to see the feedback very in a very fast manner. So that's it about Android Wear design. I shared a couple of philosophies in Android Wear and a couple of design patterns that you can use in Android Wear to create great experiences on Android Wear. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and you can email me at soham@trivias.com. Thank you, and it's been a pleasure taking part of this devfest.